You thought you'd never see me again, didn't you? Well, too bad. I'm alive.
After quite some time since my last video, yes, I am back. And today I'm going to be showcasing you guys my updated Herminia deck profile since Lyrical Set 4. This is going to be a continuation from my last video, Powerful Beauty. So more cards will be in depth and talked about in that video. Since in this one there are a lot of old cards from that list that are still present, and I would like not to go into too much detail about the old cards in this one. However, only in the interactions part of the video and the combos, and more likely your hand and your mulligan. So let's just get the deck profile started. So from the last one, the ride line hasn't really changed at all. So most likely we're still going to be running our starter. It doesn't matter which starter it is. Still running the grade 1, just because there isn't any other powerful grade 1s that you would like to play in your ride line. That's really good at the moment. We're still running Peach as our grade 2. And for this one, I'm using Coming Beauty Herminia rather than Enduring Beauty Herminia, which I'll explain later in the video. But more likely the ride line is still the same. It hasn't really changed since then. And let's actually start getting into the main deck. First off, I want to start with the triggers since they're kind of quick and easy to explain. So in this deck list, I'm running 3 of the effect draw, just because in this deck you still want to recoup your hand from the discarding effects, and there are even more discard effects now thanks to the new support from set 4. So I played 3 of the effect draw just to stabilize my hand, and also when it's a defensive trigger, it allows me to get me more cards in hand. Next, we're playing 4 heals. Doesn't matter which heal that you run. You can run the effect heals for more defense, but I just like the solid 15k that it just provides. So it really doesn't matter which heal you're going for. If you're using either the effect heals to get more defensive power for like decks that have heavy crit or multi-attack a lot, especially against decks like Shiranui and Luard, you can play it in this deck. Next, for the main triggers, I'm playing 8 critical triggers. Yes, completely different from my last list, Wild Fronts. You get more drive checks in this deck, and you want to be checking criticals early, especially since the amount of aggro power this deck has now received in the early game. Check your crit is a lot more potent than checking in front, and we have a lot more defense thanks to the new cards. So whenever your Riley gets a drive check, or you drive check with your Vanguard, you're able to put it on your rear guard or even the Vanguard itself to add more pressure to your restance. So I would suggest not to play the effect criticals because you want to remain in powerful and your powerful abilities will be shut off. But if you would like to increase your amount of draws by 1, or so you can have 4 draws, you can. Lastly, for the over trigger, I'm playing the lyrical one. Now you could play the blue over trigger. However, since you are drive checking more and you're able to get more than just 4 attacks in this deck, I think the lyrical OT is really strong, just because your boosters now get extra 10k, your Signays get an extra 10k, and your rearguards are able to hit stronger numbers, as well as you checking this early allows you to put a lot of pressure on from the early game, especially since like I said before, we have a lot more new cards that are more aggro, and you can facilitate to that. So this is exactly why I'm playing the lyrical over trigger over something like the red over trigger and the blue one. Now on to the gray ones of the deck. Same as the last deck profile, I'm playing 4 Signe. This could be between 3 and 4 to whatever you're choosing. Signe is just a good card to be able to get you in that powerful state if you don't have the necessary cards in the early game, as well as just a great amazing booster, able to give your front row more power, able to hit those power thresholds, and it's just a free restander without any cost to it. So this is why I still run Signe at like a 3 or 4 of, just because it just makes the deck more consistent and is a free restander. The deck really loves just be able to have a booster for whenever you do your Coming Herminia turns and your Enduring Herminia turns. Next, we're running 4 Musa. So Musta, same as in the last deck profile, amazing combo piece that allows you to get counter charge during the battle phase and allows you to extend your Rayleigh plays or your Signe plays, especially in this deck now. Whenever you go into Enduring Beauty Herminia, there isn't like a face down counterblast limit, which I'll explain much later, and you're able to combo Signe or any other cards in the future a lot more easier, since all of your counterblast doesn't need to be face down. So Musa is just a really nice card, and especially since we have a now way to semi-search for her in the deck, having more copies of her is just really nice. Now onto one of the new cards that we got from set 4 is Pumpkin Breeze Labita. So Labita has 2 effects, which is auto rigor circle. At the end of your turn, if you have 5 or more units with powerful ability, you may return all of your rear guards in the same column as this unit to your hand. And the second ability is powerful, continuous guard circle. If you have Vanguard with Herminia in its card name and your soul has no cards, this unit gets 5,000 shield. Rabita is a very strong card just throughout the game. In the early game, if you have a full board or mostly a full board, you're able to return a column back to your hand. And since it just checks to see how many powerful units you have on your board, even units like triggers, perfect guards, or even Stolas, you're able to return those cards back to your hand. And once you're on Herminia, it's an extra just 10k shield to your deck. At the moment, I'm only playing 3, but I will soon be bumping this up to 4, just due to how the meta is and Shiranui running around. You don't really want a lot of cards on your board. She's just a nice card to have, and increasing your deck shield is very nice. Next, we are playing 3 perfect guards and 1 elemental sanctitude. So this won't probably ever change unless we get a specific new sentinel or a new sanctitude or something. You want sanctitude against stride decks and be able to stop against pesky PG effects. And obviously you want your perfect guards to be able to survive until you get to your persona right turn in this deck. Now lastly, these are 2 tech cards. These can be changed in any other deck, but in this deck has been working really well for me. So I'm playing this package with Scrumptious Costume, Ethnida, and Pretty Demon Cord. So Ethnida, I'll read their abilities. So Athena's ability is, if you played a normal order this turn, this unit gets 5 of power until the end of the turn. In auto, when this unit is placed on rigor circle, cost count +1, search the deck or drop up to 1 Pretty Demon Cord. Reveal it, put it to your hand, and if you search your deck, shuffle your deck. And Pretty Demon Cord has 1 effect, and it's a normal order. Choose one of your rear guards, and it gets auto at the end of your turn. Return this unit to your hand, and it's on the turn. And at the end of that turn, discard a card from your hand, choose a Pretty Demon Cord for your drop zone, and put it to your hand. So these 2 in this deck specifically does a lot. It does a lot of things. One, you can deck compress if you use this card first. Now it does use a counter blast. However, there are some times on your during Herminia turn that you need to use an extra counter blast, so that is also fine. But also in the early game is not as bad too, because you're able to search for a Pretty Demon Cord and to put it on one of your rear guards. And she's also a 13k whenever you use a normal order or a Pretty Demon Cord on the same turn, so she's making numbers. And since Pretty Demon Cord is recyclable, if there's any cards you don't want in your hand or specifically want your drop zone to prevent something in the future, you can always use Pretty Demon Cord to discard that card, and you get like infinite bounce during the end of your turn to protect your rear guards as well. So these 2 also allows you to like bounce any other card. So specifically, you can bounce Stolas back to your hand to just keep calling powerful units from your drop zone. So if your opponent keeps retiring Riley, or you only have 1 Riley, you're able to just keep using Stolas every turn to keep returning her back to the board if you have Pretty Demon Cord. So these 2 could be any other cards in the text section of this video. but I've been really enjoying these two, and they've been actually helping me win some games just because I'm able to compress the deck a little bit more, and I have a way to bounce cards from my drop zone, or I can use this as a discard cost for other cards in the deck. Now for the grade 2s, we're playing obviously the bread and butter of this deck, Riley. So Riley hasn't really changed as much, other than that now she can perform a little bit more pressure thanks to Enduring Beauty Herminia, and she's still the life and soul of the deck just because this is one of your main forms of pressure. Being able to make this illusionary crit just because she gets a drive check. Most opponents do not like this card, so if this card is still on the field, they'll do everything in their power just to target her, to remove her. But that's exactly why we play the cards that we do in this deck, to be able to revive her, to be able to search her, and to be able to protect her. As in, your opponent won't have any way to remove her unless you purposely leave her on the field. So Rayleigh is absolutely a very staple card in this deck, and probably won't ever go down to 4 unless we get another version of her or another card that is just as strong as her. Next in the deck, we're playing 4 Stolas. Stolas was not in my last deck profile, so I'll explain her effects here. So she has 2 effects, which is continuous rear guard circle. If a total of 3 or more rear guards with the powerful or friend ability, this unit gets boost. And her second ability is auto. What is used to place a rear guard circle during your main phase. Choose a card from your soul and put it into your drop. If you have a Vanguard with the friend ability or powerful ability, choose a card from your drop zone with the friend or powerful ability. You may call it to rear guard circle. If you call a card, you cannot call cards from your drop zone to the end of turn. Putting a card from your soul to drop is mandatory. So Stolas is a very, very important piece in this deck, just because all the discard effects, you might discard powerful units and you're able to call it. This also allows you to discard powerful units in the early game and call them back later or even earlier as you place her. She's a 10k booster, so she's able to hit numbers. The only downside in this deck compared to friends is that she doesn't have the powerful ability, so Rabita can be a little bit awkward with her, especially if you use Mewsto on the same turn. However, she's just a super powerful card in this deck to be able to get your powerful units from your drop zone, and to be able to just essentially, you can somewhat plus if you call Rabita from your drop zone and you still have enough units for her condition to bounce cards from your drop zone. You can even bounce her back to hand and just plus that way as well. So Stolas is even more important just to get your powerful units from your drop zone. You can return it to hand as well, especially since now if your Herminia goes into your drop zone, you can revive the Herminia and bounce it back with any of a Rabita or even Pretty Demon Cord if you want to. So this is why Stolas is in the deck, and she's just another super important unit. Lastly, for the grade 2s, probably the second most important card in my opinion in the deck is Rose of Exhalation Claudia. So she has 2 abilities, which is auto when this unit is placed on rear guard circle. If you have a Vanguard with the powerful ability, call Soulbox 1. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Choose up to 1 card with the powerful ability and a different card name from this unit from among them, and reveal it. A call to rear guard circle. If it's a grade 2 or less unit card, put it to your hand. If not, if you put a card into your hand, choose a card from your hand and discard it. Shuffle your deck. And the second ability is powerful. Continuous Guardian Circle. If you have Vanguard with Herminia in its card name and your soul has no cards, this unit gets 5,000 shield. So same as Rabita with the shield, this card is very important. I've been asking for a card that can like search powerful units. This sort of does that in a reliable way. You're able to empty out soul on turn 2, which is really nice because you would like to just call her and do that. And she also can plus to the board, so she allows Rabita to be somewhat active. If you get a grade 2 or lower, you're able to call it. But she also can search for grade 3 powerful units, meaning she can search for Herminias, and you're able to get Persona right that way. However, you do have to discard a card, but even so, you're getting a grade 3 for Persona right, which is very strong. Now, she doesn't gain any power herself, But her main strength is that she's able to just compress your deck and to be able to search for those powerful units. Now, like I said before, Stolas is not a powerful ability, so she cannot search Stolas. But being able to get like a Signe, a Musta, a Riley, and any other important cards in the future is very strong. So this is why she will probably remain as a 4-of until then. But this is probably one of the strongest MVPs of the deck and probably one of the best upgrades we've gotten since set 3. Now on to the grade 3s. Same as my last deck profile, we're still running the Regalis piece that allows us to Persona Ride. This deck wants us to still Persona Ride. Even if you don't get Enduring Beauty Herminia, you could still Persona Ride on Coming Beauty Herminia and still do your same turns, just with one less extra attack. And it's just good to just still have this, because now that we play the grade 1 Ethnida, you're able to get 5k power to her if you played this Regalis piece during your main phase. So it's still a very good card that you like to have your deck. This could be replaced with anything else if you want, but I will still play it just because you're able to get that Persona Ride piece when you otherwise wouldn't be able to. Lastly, the new card from set 4 is Enduring Beauty Herminia. Now she has several abilities, which is the dress up ability. She's Coming Beauty Herminia until the end of the fight, and continuous Vanguard Circle during your battle phase. If your damage zone has 3 or more face down cards, the cost of all your auto abilities of all of your front row units with the powerful ability is reduced by 1. And the second ability is powerful auto Vanguard Circle. If you Persona roll this turn, this cost may be paid with counterbalance 1. At the end of the battle, this unit attacked. If your soul has no cards, discard a card with Herminia and its card name from your hand and stand all of your front row rear guards with the powerful ability. So now you're able to perform 5 attacks in this deck, but also the fact that her continuous ability, it's more so of a buff that you don't have to have all of your cards face down anymore just to restand 1 unit. Now you can restand 2. However, the cost is now either you pay a counterblast if you Persona Road or discard a card of Herminia, which either or is very possible in this deck, since you can call Coming Beauty Herminia from your drop zone with Stolas, or you can search for a discard target with Clauslada. There's many ways to be able to pay that cost, even if you didn't Persona Road. Herminia being able to reset in the front row for essentially no cost after you Persona Ride is very strong, because now Rayleigh is able to now just use 1 Counterblast to get her drive, as well as other units that now have a Counterblast cost is now absolutely free if you get the 3 or face down Counterblast. So overall, Enduring Beauty Herminia is very necessary upgrade for the deck. It is the next step to becoming as powerful as she can probably be. With that being said, I'm going to go over some noteworthy cards as you can try in your deck. And there are probably going to be many more in the future, especially when Divines get their newly released cards and you can try them in this deck. So first off, let's go over some noteworthy grade 3s. You can play more Coming Beauty Herminias in your deck just to have that consistent Persona Ride, as well as being able to compress your deck with Clauslada more, and to normally Persona Ride over Coming Beauty Herminia if you haven't gotten Enduring in your hand. Or if you ever wanted to, you can always have the new Herminia on your Ryline grade 3 and just forego trying to Persona Ride and just have multiple copies of Coming Beauty in your hand to discard for the 5 attacks on turn 3. They won't be as strong as the Persona Ride turns, but you still get 5 attacks. Next, another card you could play is Tedwez. Now, I haven't really tried her yet with Enduring. However, being able to have 2 on your Enduring Beauty Herminia turn is very strong, because your front row now is going to get extra like 10k, because both of the Tedwez are going to give each other the 5k, and they both have an on-hit effect that's completely free, by the way, if you have 3 or more face down damage. So your opponent has to guard them, as well as you're going to be plussing like 2 through either like 0 through 4, which is just very strong if your opponent allows her to hit. So I think Tedwez is actually a very nice addition to the deck, especially since you can call her early from Stolas, You can return it back to hand or Labita. So it's an option if you want to play her in your deck. Next, another grade 3 is Liliana. So Liliana has one effect, is when this unit attacks, if your soul has no cards, you counterblast when this unit gets tons of power it's hitting in the battle. So she's basically this as a 23k, and on the Persona Ride turn that's 33k. If you have 2 of them in the front row, that's 33k for free for your front row. And if you have like a Signe on both sides or just one Signe, you can make them hit even harder. So if you want like a card that just does a lot of like pressure, not from like Riley's drive checks, but just pure numbers perspective, you could play Liliana. And that's if you want to play her in the deck. Obviously she's not going to provide any like drawing or any utility. It's just a nice beater to have in the deck, especially since this is kind of free on her durability Herminia turns. Now on to the grade 2s. You can still play Nala in this deck. Nala was very important in the last deck profile just because you was able to get cards from your soul, and she also hit 20k. But now since we have Kasada and other cards, you don't really need Nala as much other than on your first grade 3 turn. Now on your enduring Persona turns, she still hits very well numbers. She can get up to 30k, but I think we moved past the point that we need Nala in the deck, and I think she's just a good card by herself. Next, you could play Sweep Cross Sweet in this deck if you want more deck compression, and if you don't have it, if you've been like rushed or don't have a lot of cards to use counterblast with, you can always just play this in your deck to be able to search out those units that you want. Especially since we have Labita, you can use this, call a card from your deck, and you can bounce it back. Since Labita only checks to be at 5 or more powerful units, you could just call a PG and bounce it back, or you could call Stolas and call more cards from your drop zone that way. So that's also an option. And for the grade 1s at the moment, you could play the Abspiratus. I think that's her name. So this card is from set 4, and she has one ability, which is when this unit is placed on Rigor Circle, upon to Guardian Circle, put up to 2 or more cards from your soul drop zone that were in the ride deck face up. You perform the following according to this unit on the circle. So Rigor Circle, choose a card with the same name as your Vanguard for soul drop and put it to your hand. In Guard Circle, this unit gets 15,000 shield to the end of that battle. So this card is here because you're able to get Herminias from your drop zone if you Soul Blast her during your Beauty Herminia turns. And if you don't have another Persona Ride, your next turn you can still get 5 attacks. As well as there are some times where you don't have a lot of cards to empty your soul, but now if you play this on your Rigor Circle, which you can bounce back with Labita if you have her conditions met, you're able to just empty your soul, and you're able to get, you know, during or a coming Beauty Herminia from a drop zone. So there's a ton of utility in this deck that you can use. There are probably other cards here as well. Like I know we are getting a order from the Triple Drive booster. You could play that in this deck as well. However, you will be adding a card to soul, so you do have to be mindful of that. As long as you have another Clauslada or like able to empty your soul when you use that effect of the order, then you should be fine. But overall, these are some of the tech cards that you could play in your deck. There's probably many more, but I think these are probably the best ones that you can probably tech in your deck at the moment. So for the Mulligan, so if you're going first, I think the top priority out of like all of going first and second is getting Enduring Beauty Herminia, just because you're able to Persona Ride and get the nice effects that she's going to provide. Secondly, or probably just as much equally as Enduring Beauty, you do want Coslada, just because she's able to actually search for Enduring, or able to just build up a board just for a Soul Blast, especially on turn 2. You want to be able to have her. So like if you have Rabita as well, I think she's also just as strong, just to be able to bounce your entire row, or sorry, bounce your column back to hand. So if these two are in the same column, you're able to bounce these both back to hand. And another card that you could possibly add to these two, which I'll probably put Stolas over Libita, is just because Stolas is able to empty out your soul turn 2, as well as being able to call your grade 1 or any other powerful unit that you discarded. So the reason why we aren't like putting something like Riley here is because Coslada exists, and you're able to like search her from turn 2 and turn 3, and you're going to be digging throughout your deck as well. And if you do end up discarding like Riley for Ryline, you have Stolas, so that's not really a big issue. The same goes for Signe and Miusta, that these aren't really that important. Signe could be an important piece if you don't have the necessary soul in your going on your grade 2, but like I said, she's kind of a disposable card. You only really need like 1 or 2 Signe ever in the game, unless like you're going against a heavy retire matchup. So it's okay if you discard her, just call her later with Stolas or call her from Coslada. Musa is an important card. However, I would say that like she's not really needed until turn your Persona Ride turn. You could have her on your Coming Beauty Herminia turn. However, I'd rather just save it till Persona Ride and just use up the Counter Blast with Riley and not trying to do the whole 4 dry check play on turn 3, unless I have the necessary cards at Counter Blast and I have another like Miusta in my drop zone or in my hand. So if we're going second, of course, we're still are gonna want Herminia in our hand. And I should have added this while going first, but it's important that you get a perfect guard. I'll say that both of these are like the biggest priority, getting a perfect guard into your hand, going first or going second, just because you can still get pressured a lot in the early game. This deck still suffers from receiving a lot of damage in the early game. However, because of Riley and, you know, Signe, we're able to at least like kind of push back, probably get a couple of heals on the way. But still, I think that going first or going second, you want a perfect guard as well. But same as going first, you still want Herminia in your hand. You still want to get Coslada. And in this case, if you're still going second, I think you want a Miusta to be able to use all the Counter Blast if you got damaged a lot. And just because of that, I think getting something like Rayleigh onto the board or into your hand while going second, because you're going to be receiving damage and you want to be able to push back with the damage. Even if Rayleigh's on the field, your opponent is going to attack into her. You don't want your opponent to get too much advantage since they went first. And Rayleigh doesn't care if you're on grade 2 or... Sorry, doesn't care if your opponent's on grade 2 or grade 3. I will say like Rayleigh is just as important in Miusa as well, just to be able to push back against your opponent. As well as the other cards, they're just as important, like Stolas, to be able to, again, facilitate 2 going second and to be able to facilitate to turn 3 play with Coming Beauty Herminia. But Stolas is just as important because you're able to rush your opponent. Even though there will be at grade 2, you can still call cards from your drop zone. If you're playing cards like Teruez or Liliana, you're still able to push your opponent because you are calling them from drop zone, and she doesn't have a grade restriction when calling cards from drop zone. So as for the other cards like Signet Rabita, they're just as important. However, I will say like Rabita and Coslada are more important going first because you're going to be able to get that extra shield, and this isn't live until you get to grade 3. Signe, of course, is just a booster, but she's also a very important booster in the deck. And she just allows you to get your consistent combos with Rayleigh and just having a nice booster in power gainer throughout all of the deck. Now we're going to be doing a turn by turn play Not much has changed since the last video I've done this with, but there are a couple things now that we could do that are brand new that we couldn't do before in the last one. So obviously, when we ride our grade 1, we're going to use our grade 1 skill, the Soul Blast, to draw a card. And now, we'll say let's just take some damage. We're going to be on our grade 2 turn. Now we can ride Peach while discarding a card from our hand. And now there are a couple plays we could do on turn 2, which it's all pretty good. So first, you could call Claslada, you can Soul Blast 1, and you can either get a grade 3, so you could get Herminia from your top deck, or a grade 2 or less. Usually I try to aim for like a Miusa to have as a 20k booster behind Peach. Let me move the soul. I'm at the drop zone. And you can have a 20k booster for the Vanguard lane, or you could call Libita to be able to bounce these two back to hand. So in this case, I'm just going to call Libita first. And if you have a Stolas, you can call her behind Vanguard and call your powerful Grey Wolf from the drop zone. And if you had like another card like Signe or even Riley, you can call that over here. And now since you have 5 powerful units, that includes the Vanguard as well, you're able to bounce these two back to hand and essentially use Claslada next turn, which is very, very strong to be able to do in this deck. Sorry for the glare, but you can still see Signe here. Now, you don't have to use Stolas early game, but if you want to be able to aggro your opponent, which is some matchups you would like to do, then dig for Stolas to be able to do this play. Like I said, even if you have to call Riley, it's still okay. There are other plays you can do as well. So say like you call Claslada right here, you call Stolas right here, and you have to call something like Miusta or even Signe behind Vanguard. I think it's still pretty okay. So if you call Miusta behind Vanguard, you still have your 5 powerful units right here. You're able to bounce Stolas back to your hand. You have an intercept, but it will go to the drop zone. While your next grade 3 turn, you're able to call Stolas, call her right back. You're able to use her effect. If you had extra soul, that is, but you wouldn't have the soul if you use Stolas anyway. But you're able to revive this and to be a 10k interceptor. Or you're able to revive it and use Libita in the same column to bounce back Claslada. So those are just some combos that you could do on your grade 2 turn, and they're pretty decent too. It doesn't cost that many cards in hand to be able to do all of these plays, and you're able to return them back if you have Libita. So now on to your grade 3 turn, you ride Herminia while discarding a card from your hand. And same as your grade 2 turn, you can use Claslada to be able to search your deck for a grade 2 or grade 3. I mean grade 2 or less, or grade 3. You add obviously Herminia to hand, and you can call any other powerful unit from your deck if you get lucky and have it. So I didn't talk about these two yet, but I will do a specific section with pre-demon cord in this. So normally I would like to just call this card to Rigor Circle first, and obviously we want to set up our bread or butter play with Riley, Signe, and Miusta. And you could also call Libita here and bounce these two back, or if you only have one Riley, no Stolas, you can switch these two, which is just as fine because you're able to bounce these two back to hand and protect your Riley. And this is just a 10k intercept. Your Signe doesn't matter because I mean, either if she is retired, this will probably go away anyway, and you call Riley right over here and still do your bread or butter combo either way. So you obviously, you know, do the Riley counterblast 2 play, and you'll be able to get a drive check, and you can just boost with Herminia, attack the Vanguard that way. You still have those combos as well available to you. Not much different as to what it was last deck profile. Now, like I said before with Stolas, you can use Stolas and D-LBT to get any cards from your powerful units from your drop zone. And that includes, like, if you have to discard like a Herminia or something for whatever reason, you have to PG, and unfortunately you have to in order to survive, you have to discard your Herminia. You can call it to the same column, and you just have to call 2 other powerful units. Now, if you do this play, you cannot use Miusta and Riley. I mean, you can't use Miusta and Stolas because once it's gone, you only have 4 powerful units. So you have to call something like a Signe or some other card to be able to get the 5 powerful units for D-LBT to bounce these 2 back to hand, and you can secure your Persona Ride. So next on to the Persona Ride turn, we Persona Ride. Since Enduring Beauty Herminia is a Herminia, Coming Beauty Herminia, it is counted as a Persona Ride. So your front will get 10k, you draw a card. Same as turn 2 and turn 3. Use Claw Slaughter to search more cards to be able to call like a Rayleigh, to be called a Miusta, a Signe. It's basically the same as your turn 3. However, now since it only costs 3 face out damage to be able to restand essentially your front row, Riley's more important because you're able to get that face out damage. And let me talk about an interaction before we continue any further. So let's say you already used your Counter Blast from last turn or something, and you took more damage or something. So in this case, wait, sorry, you need 2 face down damage. So in this case, if you're attacking, if you use Rayleigh's skill first, it's not reduced. So you have to pay the full Counter Blast 2 to be able to get our drive check. You won't be able to use Signe. And like I said before, Signe is a very good card to be able to pump up your rear guards, because this is only 20k on your Persona Ride turn. And you want this to hit 25, so your opponent won't just simply call a 10k shield to Guardian Circle, not able to call 15. So in this case, what you would like to do is use Signe first, give your other front row rear guard 5k power, and then use Riley, because it's now Counter Blast 1, and she gets to drive check. So that's very important when sequencing that under Enduring Beauty Herminia. And like I said before, Miusta is a good card on Enduring, since you can, if you ever wanted to, you can just, swing with this, not use Riley's skill, you Counter Blast 1, and you can swing with this, choose your Persona Road, you can swing with Enduring, and because of the reduced Counter Blast effect, your front row can restand for essentially for free. You can return her back to the bottom of the deck, and you counter charge 1, and now you can do the same combo again, using Signe again to Counter Blast 1 to give her 5k, and to use Riley to get another 10k if you ever wanted to. I should have removed that earlier. But essentially, you do want to sequence your Counter Blast right, so you won't be misplaying and spending extra Counter Blast for costs that you could just be reducing. And pretty much the same is like with Stolas. After you send Coming Beauty Herminia to your drop zone, you could call her. And they have her beat in the same column, you can just bounce this back to hand. And if your next turn you don't have Persona Ride, you can either Persona Ride over Enduring, or you can just stay on Enduring and just discard Herminia. So there's many lines of play that you can do with this deck, and it just takes management again of your Counter Blast. It's a little bit more easier to do now since Enduring just wants 3 face down. You can reap all the benefits. So whenever every time you heal, you essentially get another like drive check, or every counter blast after 3 damage, you get essentially another drive check. And you could obviously play 2 Rileys in your front row, which more times than not, I haven't really done this play as of yet, since like I just think having 1 is still enough. You could do 2 as well if you have enough counter blasts and 2 Rileys in your hand. However, most of the time I'd rather just have 1 unit pressuring rather than 2, just to save resources, and it depends on the deck as well. You could have, again, like I said, you got 2 Rileys in the front row. If you have enough counter blasts, you can essentially keep having both of them get drive checks, and so on and so forth. Now I want to talk about the interactions between these 2 cards. So I'm just going to leave Herminia here. So of course, when you play her, you can search for a pretty demon cord, and there's a lot of stuff you could do here. So like I said before, with Stolas, you're able to essentially call Stolas, and Stolas can call any powerful unit from your drop zone. So let's say in this case you could call a Riley, or if you need to call Riley, I'll call it right here. Then you can call another Coslada right here. You can play pretty demon cord. You can target Riley, or you could target Stolas. Either is fine. Then, you know, you do your plays. She gets extra 5k power, so she's at 13k. And then at the end of the turn, you could bounce back the card you chosen. So you can bounce back Stolas. And the thing is, in this case, you can discard an extra card to be able to return this back to your hand at the end of the turn. In this case, your opponent can either target Riley, which it saves you a card if they use a skill, or they just attack into her just to remove her, because they know you just bounce back Stolas in your hand. So either they just leave her on the field, which is fine by you because you're able to just intercept with Coslada, call Stolas back and call her right back, ask for a 10k shield, which is really nice. Or you're able to just, you know, call her, bring back Riley, or any other card that you want from your drop zone. And this play also affects your turn 1 and turn 2, your turn 2 as well. So if you do have a Riley, you know, you have this card or draw into this. They're both basically the same card, but this is just a body on the field. It uses a counter blast, but it compresses your deck. You're able to essentially protect like your front row, or just like a very important piece in your deck, just because you are playing it. Now, if you do have like something like Labita and Signe, if I can find her again. So if you do have something like this, you could also still use Pretty Demon Cord if you have it in your hand. You can bounce, like these 2 will bounce back, and you can like bounce back another card or Stolas back to your hand, depending on the situation. And I've done that in a couple of games where on my grade 2 turn, I had something like this, or a Coslada in the same lane. Played Pretty Demon Cord. I was able to bounce back 3 units. And this is not even a Kyrie deck or any other like deck like Prisms or something. You're just able to protect your rear guards, as well as able to aggro early on in the early game, just because of Pretty Demon Cord, Labita, and just by playing these 2, you're able to like just bounce back a bunch of cards. As well as this card, like I said, these 2, you're able to bounce back anything. So if you're only like your last legs or something, and you need to like call out a perfect guard just to attack, and you're able to just bounce it back to hand after. So there's a lot of uses of these 2, and as well as, like I said, if you use Stolas to call back like your and Cummy Beauty Herminia from your drop zone, instead of having Labita or like having a booster, you could call her in the back row. You can just use this, target Herminia, bounce it back to hand, and you're able to have a persona ride or discard target for your next turn. So, bunch of utility from these two cards. Like I said, you could probably play any other text or any other cards you want in the future, and you still be pretty well. And that's all going to be for the deck profile of Enduring Beauty Herminia. I'm very happy that she got a boost in set 4, got a very powerful dress up, as well as new cards to play around, as well as just being able to search your deck and now have a very more stronger turn 4 persona ride turn. This is so satisfying to play for me. The deck will be getting more, such as energy. Well, every deck is getting energy, as well as we're getting more energy cards, and also there will be like other cards to be able to search orders. So you might see me mix some orders in this deck, since being able to compress, especially in Herminia, is very, very strong because you have Rayleigh and you're able to just get more dry checks in the average deck hand. So like I said in my other video about Herminia being a game changer, I still feel that way, even though we are in a meta of Luards and Shiranuis. I still think the deck can be very strong if you build it the right way and you play the deck the right way. I will probably update the deck to try to combat those. I haven't been facing a lot of it yet. More so, I haven't tested it against Shiranui Luard. But overall, I think this deck is just very strong if you play it correctly. And it can, like, a lot of my opponents are just threatened just because how much power I can get on my persona ride turn. And having cards like Rayleigh and Clauselata being able to increase the amount of shield in the deck and pressure my opponent's hand. But overall, I really enjoyed this deck. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm glad to be back, and I will see you guys next time.